So we're going to have a great opportunity, I think, if I could just bring Tavia up and her mom and dad, because I'm sure we have some questions with regard to that. And I wanted her mom and dad to be up here too, because this is a tough thing, right? For a mom and a dad, challenge of their faith. If you could turn me down just a little bit. And think of any questions that might have popped up in your mind. I've actually been to Haiti on a missions trip, and it is literally one of the most destitute nations in the world. And as you touch down in their airport, it's not like you're gradually exposed to this. It's boom, right off the bat. It's like, wow, okay, we're not in Kansas anymore. And it's really culture shock. We're learning about that in Sunday school, but it's culture shock. And so if you have any questions for Tavia, I think we have a mic. Don't we have a mic?
Right there.
Bring that mic up or be ready. Anybody have any questions off the bat? I'll start off with bucket showers, wells. Do you want to share a little bit on that?
Okay. So bucket showers at boot camp, we were introduced to this, and it was a very interesting experience. You put your swimsuit on, and it didn't matter who was around. You started washing yourself, and we only had a certain amount of time to do this, so it was like bucket shower or laundry, and I think most of the time I chose a bucket shower. Anytime I was able to get a shower, I was willing to take one. And then community wells, we filtered all of our water there. But the wells were actually in the church. You would go in and you would get a key and you would unlock it, and then you'd put a stick and a bucket down, and you'd have to use your arm strength to pull that up. So that was very new and interesting experience. I remember the first time I was like, I was asking something and I was like, where do we get our water? I knew it wasn't going to be out of a faucet, obviously, but I wasn't really sure. I was like, is there going to be any available? Are we even going to get any? Like, what's going to happen? So they were like, go to the church. And I remember I spent like 10 minutes looking for it. I had no idea what it was going to look like or what it was supposed to be, and someone finally came up and they were like, this is the one. I was like, thank you. That was really helpful. But yeah, that was definitely, it took a long time because we had to flush our toilets with that and take showers, so we have to go get a bunch of buckets and then you have to carry it up the hill, or there was, we had a cistern up at the hill where the girls stayed, and then down in the hill the guys stayed, and they had wells, so we had to help them drag their buckets of water, which was fun.
Any questions? Elizabeth, we got a microphone coming for you right here.
You indicated that there was a different language, Creole. How did you communicate with the children? Was it difficult, or did you just slip right into understanding?
Well, a lot of the kids actually spoke a little bit of English. There was one little boy, he came up the very first day that we were there, when I was saying we hung out with the kids when our leader went to go get supplies, and he came up and he was very shy and wouldn't say anything, and one of the girls, Creole is kind of French, and then their Creole, I guess, smashed together, I don't really know. So you can kind of get the gist. So some girls on our team knew French, so we asked him if he spoke English, and he said no, and we were like, what's your name? And he goes, my name is, and so then we kind of got the gist that he spoke English, but he was a little ornery and didn't want to admit to that. But we kind of learned how to ask your name, and you could kind of indicate things. It was definitely hard. I remember one of my team members, they were like, one of the guys came up and asked us what we were doing and asked if he could help, and I had said, I was trying to say no, and it turned into something else. I'm not exactly sure what it was supposed to be, and they were saying if only we could have had a video camera. That was hilarious. And I was like, well, I'm glad you didn't, because I just remember I was very expressive with my hands. I guess that's how I made it through that.
Yeah, and that tends to happen too. You don't know the language, it's like you use your hands a lot.
Yeah.
I'm hungry. How about when you first got? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, one of her teammates actually realized that he was very gifted with languages, and so I think he probably was a big help because he picked it up very quickly. So it was nice to have that too, because I'm not gifted in that way, so I would have definitely looked for that.
Maybe some thoughts that went through your head as you got off the plane and you kind of went into that area. We're used to organization here. It's very disorganized there.
Yes.
Tell us what your initial thoughts were.
Well, I remember getting off the plane and we went through this kind of tunnel thing, and immigration, we were the only people going through. So it was really when we got to get our bags, and it's not orderly. Like he said, everything's on the ground, and our bags were all the same and had numbers on them and that kind of stuff, so it was easy to get to that. Then getting out of the airport, I was actually very kind of scared, because lots of Haitian men, and they look very mean, and they'll grab you just because I guess they don't see white people very often. So it's kind of scary, I mean, I'm not little, but it's not, they could take me away if they wanted to. So that was very scary, and I was pushing a cart of bags, actually. I got in charge of that somehow. And so trying to get through that crowd, and then the ride to the compound, which is about an hour away, a lot of kids on our team weren't really paying attention or looking out, and I just remember they were talking or laughing, and I just remember sitting there very quietly and looking at everything and kind of taking it all in, and it was very sad. I remember I cried riding through there. That was very hard, trying to take it all in, because I'd never ever been anything in that situation before. So.
Questions?
Hi, Tavia. I'm sure you've had a little time to think about your experience. I was just curious if you could share with us, what were some of the important lessons that you learned from that? What would be your takeaway from that experience?
Well, definitely being patient with people. I lived with 26 other people this summer. It was like a bunch of brothers and sisters, and being put in situations where you couldn't say, I don't want to do this, or I don't know how to, you learned a lot about yourself, I think I did for sure, trying to work your personality with their personality in order to get the job done. And then, at least I know in my home, I have access to everything of how much I want of it. Not necessarily, that sounds kind of bratty, but it's true compared to over there. And I was washing dishes one day, and I went to grab a bottle of soap, and I happened to see the price tag on the bottle of soap. We paid $40 for one bottle of soap, and that bottle of soap lasted us the entire summer to wash all of our dishes, every single day, 3 times a day. And I was like, wow, okay, that's a major. So just seeing how we waste things and use however much we want of it and don't even think about it, and that was definitely like, okay, $40 for a bottle of soap, and that lasted us the entire summer. And we could go through it in our house probably 2 or 3 weeks, so it was like, really, wow. And then, I can't think of anything else right now. Sorry, off the top of my head.
How about the worship services? How were they different than perhaps we do?
Like I said, they were very loud, and their prayers were very long and kind of, how do I say this? They were very, I guess, I don't know if it was, well, one thing that I've read a book since I've been back that's kind of explained a lot. Because their main worship is voodoo over there, when you convert to Christianity, in voodoo religion, you are very loud and kind of scream and use your hands a lot and that kind of stuff. So then converting that over to Christianity, they're Christians still, but that still stays with them. So they're very much, I guess, taken over by the Holy Spirit, you could say, and that's what they would tell you. And so it was kind of scary at first. We weren't really sure what was going on, and we weren't sure what to expect. But the people there were amazing. We would go in front of the church and sing in front of them or give a presentation, and they really enjoyed that. It was just that first Sunday, not knowing what to expect and seeing that, and you're like, okay, we can do this. We have 3 more Sundays. And then the baptismal service, that was, when we got there, and then they came up from the water screaming, and the one picture on the screen, you can kind of see the lady, they came up screaming, and we weren't sure if it was because the water was cold, or that's just how they did things. We never found out, but that was one thing that was kind of like, that's interesting. But I think that might have explained it, how transfers over into Christianity, they still have that with them, so.
Did you, because there are many there that do practice voodoo, and were there any times that you could sense maybe an evil presence or a dark presence while you were there at all?
Yes, I would say about less than half the village attended the church, and so a lot of times the village men or village teenagers would come and hang around while we were working. They would help us work and kind of learn how to do it so they could learn these skills, I guess. And I never felt, I don't know if this is probably a bad thing, but I never felt very comfortable around them. There was definitely, there was men of the church that were there, and they were very comfortable, very sweet people to be around, but definitely the teenage guys and some of the men that did not attend the church. It was very uncomfortable. And there were, at one point, they had not made this rule yet, but us girls were not allowed to be alone, obviously, with these guys or alone in general. And so I had a stalker, but I mean, you just, that's just normal there. You just learn to, you learn to be with someone or not, yeah, so it's kind of, yeah, they're definitely, it's different, and I don't know if they necessarily need to come across that way, it just kind of does because they don't know, because we're white people too, that plays a lot into it, even though we're girls, white people plays a ton into it, so yeah, that was, yeah, definitely that sometimes.
Any questions anymore? Over here?
Hi Tavia, what was your, what was your, when you went over there, how much of it, I saw that you were doing on projects and helping, what was the focus on going alongside versus talking to people about Christ? What was your responsibility personally? Was it looser in the sense they say, hey, make a friend, and then at some point talk about the Lord? Or were you just to help and then as a group or a leader talks about the Lord? What was the purpose?
Okay, so we were a work team, I guess you could say. So our project was to go there and work and serve them. So, but also, I don't know if it was meant to work out like this, but it ended up, it was really neat. They worked alongside us and we talked with them, and like I said, I remember being in the classroom one time and they were working on a room next to us, and we were picking up praise and worship songs that they were singing. We were kind of singing along with them, and that was kind of cool. And because of the language barrier, you can only say so much. But our head leader, Mr. Richard, he would preach in the services, and then our Pastor Wilford was the pastor of the village, and he would translate. So we weren't really there, with teen missions, there are evangelism teams and work teams, and we were more of a work team, so that was more of our project, but by serving them, I guess we were representing the Lord Christ. And I was going to say something, but I don't remember what it was, so with someone else. But yeah.
My brother was there a couple of years ago, and he was saying how he still saw a lot of destruction from the earthquake. Did you see any when you were there?
Yes, I'm not sure how much of it was, I'm sure there's still plenty from the earthquake, but a lot of it is trash. There's a lot of trash in run down buildings, which I'm sure is from the earthquake, that just haven't been repaired. I don't know, I'm assuming because it's the corruption of the government and they don't have a lot of money to put back into it. And so it is still, I would say very much so from the earthquake, is still, run down and that kind of stuff. And one thing that I will say is the pastor of the village, Pastor Wilford, he, like I said, less than half of the church, or half of the village attended the church, and he was always busy doing something with the community, whether it was not just the church, like he was the village keeper, like he took care of the village, he took care of the school. There was one Sunday afternoon, I think it was, I was on the porch, and a lady, 2 Haitian women and a little boy that was like 2 or 3 came up, and from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet was like 3rd-degree burns. And they wanted medical help, and because we don't know them very well and we don't know the village people, we could not assist with that. That was really hard. I went to my room and cried. That image will forever be in my mind because of that, and not being able to help was really hard. And so we sent them to Pastor Wilford, and he got them medical help. They were part of the village and he knew them, but they did not attend church. That was amazing to see how he was the village keeper. He was always doing something with the community, whether they went to the church or not, being able to assist them, and that was really amazing to see, and that's how it should be, I think. So.
I was going to do a follow-up. How, if at all, was your faith challenged, and how did your faith help you on this, or in this?
So how was my faith challenged? I guess you could say that...
Or maybe it wasn't, I don't know, but I know when you go there and you see that, it's like, wow.
Yeah, I guess I was naive in a sense, I think, that because I've never been in a situation like this, trying to kind of wonder, like, why would you do this? Why would you let this happen? Like, this boy he might have been 2, maybe 2. And then for us not to be able to help him, not let us being able to help him, and not being able to do anything. And I know it's not all about us, and it wasn't like, oh, I want this victory to help this little boy. It's this little boy's hurting, and his mom and his grandmother came to us crying, and we can't do anything. And you're gonna make me sit here and watch. And I'm like, okay. So that was really hard. But then to see Pastor Wilford have the opportunity to minister to them because they don't go to the church was great to see, but in the sense, still, it was hard. That was one of the things that I can think of. I'm sure there's more. And then,
what about within your own team? You know, can I take just a second?
yeah.
TMI is an interdenominational, which, I mean, most organizations of that type are, that are doing that type of work, are interdenominational. And so, because they had limited interaction with the people, in a sense, as far as, sharing the gospel and that sort of thing, I think there was a lot of interaction within their own team. And if you hear some of the stories about the people that were on the team, I mean, it's heartbreaking, number one, but they were in great need of the gospel. So I think more of her challenges in faith came within their own team versus ministering to the people that were in Haiti. So maybe you have a story or two you want to talk about that. No pressure.
I think, well, they were not allowed to, they have basic tenets of what they believe. This is what we believe, and it's very basic. So things about, like sovereignty of God, they're not allowed to discuss that because the whole point is for the team to be a team. And the things that cause division, they kind of nix it. No, you're not allowed to talk, no, you're not allowed to talk. It's very interesting when you get 27 teenagers together where they go. And one of the discussions was, I was saved, and then I did this, and I think I may have lost my salvation, but I'm saved again. And it was really funny because I think after 20 or 30 minutes talking this, before the leaders caught them for talking about these things, he kind of talking through it with teammates came to the conclusion, maybe I was not saved to begin with. Maybe it was a working out, I knew I was coming to Christ. Very interesting how you get a group of teenagers together in stressful situations, what comes out of it. So, but a lot of spiritual conversation happened, like Aaron said, within the team, definitely.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, a lot of our teams, I realized how lucky I was this summer to have a family that I can go home to and I can tell my parents anything. I've told my parents most things that happened on the team. And just to be able to freely talk to my parents and then to hear some of the kids' stories, whether their parents are divorced or they're adopted and they don't feel like they fit into their family or they don't have a very good family situation or one of their parents is sick or just so many things on my team that I felt like I was the only normal one there. I'm like, isn't that normal to have a family that you go home to and you don't have to worry about making dinner for your family because your mom's sick or something like that, or something going on at school and not being able to tell your parents because you feel like they won't listen to you. And I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy that you can't do that. Yeah, that was really eye-opening in that sense of family life and that kind of stuff.
Any more questions? Elizabeth?
Tavia, this may be a hard question, but you may have some ideas since you spent it there. I know you didn't work directly with the pastor and whatever, and we know that what the physical conditions and needs are is really a lot. Do you have any idea, and it might help us in remembering your summer and praying too, what would you say are some of the biggest needs beyond what we can actually see, the physical needs? What would be of help in a village like that and to the people who are, like your Pastor Wilford and so forth? Was he a native from there? Okay.
Yes.
So what would be a help if you have any ideas on that?
Honestly, I would say we as Americans, when we go in, I guess we kind of, at least from what I know, sometimes we kind of go in and we focus on working with the church and the pastor and that kind of stuff, but mentors for women would be huge, I think, because they, you do not see a lot of women in the day. It's kind of like men came around the work site and took care of business and women take care of the home. But Pastor Wilford's wife is in America right now. She's in, I want to say she just moved to Alabama. She is pregnant and she has a tumor, so they are getting treatment for that. And so, but I've never met her and I'm not sure exactly, but it doesn't sound like they live in the village So she could very well go alongside those women, but just from looking from the outside in, that's what I saw. There wasn't anybody, like Pastor Wilford would work alongside the young men in the church and help them, and they would work with him and that kind of stuff, but seeing the women being at home all day and having no one to come alongside them during the church and stuff would have been cool to see.
That it would be good for them to be taught so they can teach their children.
Yes, yes, yes.
Now that you've been to Haiti, what does the future look like? Do you feel the Lord leading you to back to Haiti, or is there another country the Lord has placed on your heart?
Well, the organization that I went with does not have a trip to Haiti in 2016, and I've looked at all the trips, and I think I decided I want to go to Myanmar, but I'm not exactly sure. I would love to go back to Haiti. A book that I read when I came back of a lady that lives right outside. She moved from Louisiana at 24, left everything, and started a school down there. It's called Respire Haiti, and she now is married and has 2 sets of adopted sisters, and lives in Haiti with her husband, and they run a school and they have a cafe, and her mindset on things is not to, she's seen it firsthand, orphanages gone wrong, because orphanages in Haiti, not necessarily the kids don't have parents, their parents give them to the orphanages for them to have a better life and that kind of stuff. So her mindset on things is not to open up orphanages or have the Americans come in and rescue all the children. It is to teach the parents how to parent their children and to, teach them how to parent their children and get the community back up on their feet again. So the next generation is not the same. So it actually changes. So I would love to go visit her school one day. That would be amazing. And yeah, but I think I'm headed to Myanmar next summer. I'm not sure though, so we'll find out.
I do have a little experience taking baths out of helmets and stuff like that, but how did you feel when you left? When you left and you had a chance to get past all the questions and everything else, and you had to just think and experience, just take it all in when you had to leave. And when you got home and you sat down by yourself, and can you share a little bit about your reflection on that and what you would tell people your own age?
So when I left Haiti, is that what you're saying? When I left Haiti and how? Well, when did I stop talking to people about myself? Is the first thing. It's you looking back. After I told everybody everything and looking back, and as I was writing the presentation, like I said, it was crazy. This was so normal in the moment, but now it wasn't, and it is a one-of-a-kind experience. There is nothing like it. Nothing can replace it. Nothing can replicate it. It's amazing to, looking back, realize what we were able to accomplish, and hopefully how we were, in the moment it didn't, because we weren't in a work team, an evangelism team, it didn't seem like we weren't hard presenting the gospel to people, like that kind of stuff. But being able to serve them and not requiring anything back from them was like, wow, we were able to show, we were the hands and feet of Christ, and we were able to do that for them. So in the moment, it just seemed like, we were just doing this because this is what we did, but looking back, you realize that Christ was actually using you in really great ways that you didn't even know until you got back home. And I don't know, it's so hard to describe for people my age, because people hear about this and like, oh yeah, she had a great summer, but I don't know, there's something about it, it's hard to explain. You'd have to go on yourself, but it would be a great, I don't know, there's gotta be some better way to do it, but I don't know how to describe it, I'm sorry.
I mean, she lived a life, like she has a whole nother life that we don't have any touch with, which is really interesting, because it was pushed into 8 weeks. So like everything's magnified, emotions are magnified. The experiences you have are so hypersensitive to what we do every day because we have every day to do it. It all happened in 8 weeks. So I think everything is a bit more compressed. I think that's probably why it's hard to put into words.
Yeah.
From a parental point of view, and I know that if this is one of my own children, 13-year-old gone for over a month, Haiti of all places. Tell us a little bit about that and maybe the struggle and just the cry out in prayer to the Lord.
I actually thought something was wrong with me because people would ask me if I missed her. And I would say no. And not that I didn't miss her, but she was where she was supposed to be. So somebody would ask me and I'd say, do you want my honest answer? Because I was just so at peace with her being there. She was much safer there than anywhere I could keep her. I feel like as far as faith stretching, it was more putting my faith into practice. Things I've always known, but okay, now try it out, see how you like it. And there would be times, I know the first swim meet that she was on, I bawled. She's supposed to be swimming. I'm supposed to be here till event 67 and I'm not. So things like that, yes, I would very much miss her because she's very much a part of that activity we do as a family. But in the day-to-day, I would get up, we're eating lunch, Tavia's eating lunch, I'd think about her, pray for her. Those types of things. I know especially on Sundays, it was more poignant. Lord, let her grasp what this is like, what worship is like in another country, because I think as Americans, we tend to think, let's go evangelize them and make their church look just like ours at home. And I think it's very important to realize that culturally, that says a lot about how a church will structure and run. That was for me. I don't know. Like I said, I sometimes wondered, was something wrong with me for feeling that way? But no, I think it was good.
Yeah, she was dearly missed, obviously, and I think that was the biggest struggle, to not be selfish in the experience, because I knew that she needed to see this and needed to do this, and that the Lord will, like you were saying, it's so compressed and so much happening in such a short period of time that it's really hard to unravel when you do get home, I think. And I knew that this is going to have a lifelong impact, and there wasn't there wasn't a fear in my mind for her, like Tara said. The safest, you talk about God being sovereign over all things, and that's easy. It's easier to say it than it is to live like that. And so it was definitely an opportunity for us to live that, and God graciously provided peace in our hearts. And it was honestly, I don't recall ever feeling a fear for her, even though obviously there were times where she was in situations where if I would have been looking at that situation, I would have experienced that fear. But God graciously provided peace. That's all I can say. And we were just totally at peace with it, knowing, although we missed talking to her, and it was just, it was just so strange when she got back, to just look over and she'd be there, and your heart just swelled with joy, because you could go grab her, and you could go say something to her, and for a while you couldn't do that, and that was the hardest part for me. Honestly, was just her not being there, but never a sense of doubt in the Lord or fear, and that was His grace that provided that.
All right, what would you say to somebody here, young or old, who are considering doing a missions trip? Because I know this church as a whole wants to be more missions minded. What would you say to that?
I would say if you have the opportunity to go on a mission trip, take it. Absolutely take it. You will be changed. It is amazing. The thing that was very hard for me, I think, was coming back home and trying to reintegrate back into all of this, because you have, especially like with people my age, because you have an experience that they don't have, and it's hard to explain to them what happened in that 8 weeks. And so that was kind of hard, and I know people on my team were experiencing the same thing. We were kind of talking about it, and it's not necessarily that, it's not that your friends have changed or that where you came back to has changed. It's you've changed. Your perspective on things have changed, and you went through something that they didn't, so it's hard to give that to them and explain it to them. So, but yeah, if you have the opportunity to go on a mission trip, take it. You will be changed, and it is amazing to see how that will work.
Amen. And I know that a lot of missionaries will come home and tell you that that's their most difficult time too, because they feel like they're between two worlds.
Yeah.
They live abroad for so many years, and they're literally immersed in a culture that is not on. Then they come home, and they're not quite home when they're home, and when
Yeah.
they're away. They're not.
Yeah,
So,
because you long to be somewhere else.
Right.
So you have to find your contentment.
yeah.
Yeah.
Amen. Well, let's pray. We're not done yet, but let's pray and then we'll give thanks. Lord, we give you thanks for this opportunity for us to hear how you're working and moving. And Lord, especially for Tavia, thank you for her courage and willingness to step out. And thank you for the impact that she has had not only in Haiti, ministering there, but back here, Lord, and just her words. Lord, I pray for anyone who might be considering missions or going on a missions trip. Lord, that you would move their heart by this testimony that Christ can work and move in all situations. And we just thank you for this family and all that they do around in Christ. So let's give them a round of applause. Well, we have in your